What is the thing that you think most of the people that listen to this struggle with?
That's a good question. So most of what we do here with performance-driven living is define convention. Like I always use the phrase unlearning. It's like, what is the thing that people think they understand?
I'm glad you say that, because I think unlearning is more important than learning.
I spend my entire life unlearning at this point. That's my belief, and that is that I'm questioning convention. I'm questioning things that people think they already understand, and then kind of reverse engineering back into oh wow, that wasn't the way I thought it was.
Right.
And here's my philosophy on all this, Joe. And this, I get accused of always wanting to be right, and you might think that's hereditary.
No, I know your father very well, so yeah. And most humans think they're right, and it takes a lot of awareness to realize when you could be totally wrong while thinking you're right.
Well, and I've got two answers to that. My first answer is, well, of course I think I'm right, because if I thought I was wrong, wouldn't I change my opinion already?
Yeah.
Because why would I hold a wrong opinion if I thought it was wrong?
Correct.
The second thing is I want everything I know to be challenged, because there's only one of two results out of being challenged. Either A, I become more resolute in my belief because it was proven right, or you fixed my bad thinking by proving me wrong.
Right.
And I'm 100% willing to be wrong on something if someone shows me the error of my ways, right?
Yeah.
And I think, so what do we do on this podcast? I question everything. And a lot of it's very health and wellness focus, as a lot of what you do is.
Right.
Obviously, we talk about marketing, which a lot of stuff that you do is. I mean, there's a lot of overlap there. But that's really what we're doing. But I got to tell you, I mean, I really want to hear about what's on your heart right now. Like, what is most passion projects that you're working on? Because I know you're super involved with the Maha stuff. We've been at multiple Maha events at the same time with, all this other kind of stuff. Lots of overlaps. What is it that you're most passionate about right now? Because I think you and I could probably talk for hours about any number of subjects and not run out of words.
Yeah, I mean, personally is determining I'm pretty outspoken about opinions, clearly, but there's a lot of things I don't talk about because I often wondered, is it even going to make a difference, right? And what I mean make a difference is sometimes you can speak openly about what you're frustrated about, and if you don't really know your shit, you can say something utterly stupid. And I certainly am not afraid of making mistakes or saying things that are dumb. What I am most concerned about from a public standpoint is being effective and, sharing what I believe to be useful and valuable to other people. And there's I always sort of try to determine what causes someone to pursue status versus growth. Because status is seductive, but people that get seduced are oftentimes looking to be seduced. And so what type of communication causes people to love you or hate you? Because if you've got something to share with someone, you're going to catch more bees with honey than vinegar sometimes. But if you're vanilla, you get no one's attention. So you have to speak openly about stuff and be willing to not have, in many cases, the majority agree with you. But so to answer your question, what's kind of going through my head, I often think about that with, let's take addiction recovery. I was just on stage talking a little bit about marketing and addiction recovery and things like that. I believe addiction is a solution. I think the war on drugs and all those I don't think you can punish pain out of people. I think addiction works. It's a terrible solution, but in the moment, if you're lonely, if you're in pain, if you are depressed, it can oftentimes be a substitute. The problem is it leaves you, there's this thing called consequences. So, for me, it's like when there's so many forces that make money imprisoning people, when 18% of the GDP is healthcare, which I said on stage, it's really health carelessness.
Yeah.
What do you do with that? Because you got all these people that are sick, and there's so many solutions presented to them that are not solutions, they're traps. And addiction, because that's one field that I work a lot in, there's a lot of things that are exploitive, and I don't like exploitation.
Of the 600 topics we could talk about, that's probably the one that I wanted to talk about with you most, to be honest with you. So
good.
I love that that's where you went with that conversation, because we kind of left the canvas open. I've got a family that's been riddled by addiction, multiple levels. You know my family, that's not new information to you. My own mother died of alcohol overdose. And that one's a weird one to me still. You know, I don't talk about it that often, but it's like getting a phone call that my mother's dead because she, you know, drank herself into oblivion, and watching her yellow body sit on display.
How old were you?
It was just a couple years ago. She was only 64. Like, which to me, like 60, I'm 50 now, and it's like 64 to me seems like a kid.
Right.
And like, which sounds ridiculous, but it's like, but the reality is that there is we're here at the Metabolic Health Conference, and the entire conversation in metabolic health is treat the system, not the symptom. And how do we get to the root cause of what's going on? And I think we share a belief on addiction that is, addiction is a symptom. Addiction is not what we're trying to cure.
Exactly.
That we spend too much time trying to deal with abstinence from a drug, or abstinence from alcohol, or any of these, you know, abstinence from sex addiction or whatever, and rather than unpacking and finding out what is doing this, because this is a bandage on a much deeper wound.
Right.
And getting a person to willpower their way out of touching alcohol is one thing. Fixing the brokenness that leads there is a very different conversation.
Exactly. For one, I'm sorry about your mom. That's terrible for anyone to have to witness a parent. You know, and what's interesting in addiction, when one of the biggest causes of relapse for many addicts is when one of their parents die. I cannot tell you how many, I mean, even happened with me. You know, I had a relapse when after my father died in a big way. I mean, there's just a lot of pain associated with it, because you're actually losing a significant part of yourself, even if you had a terrible relationship with your parents, even if one of them was physically, mentally, sexually abusive, when they die. And when they die from addiction, you're also witnessing, you know, the person who
Your future.
you gave, you know, that's a difficult one. In that there's, no matter what anyone says or how strong they try to pretend themselves to be, there's definitely, you know, some type of trauma associated with it.
Well, and my belief on that is actually that when we lose a parent, parents are often the source of our trauma.
Oh yeah.
In many cases.
Oh yeah.
And as long as the parent is still alive, there is the potential hope of resolution somewhere in that trauma. And at the point that the parent dies, the resoluteness is now firm.
Yeah.
Like there is no resolution at this point. Like you can't go back and fix that problem. Like the minute a person dies, there's always this catalog of what ifs. There's a catalogs of it should have been this and it could have been that. But I think that's part of the relapse, is that perhaps the parent's involvement was the leading cause of the root trauma that led to the addiction to begin with.
Yes.
And now we've triggered that root cause again because we never ferreted out the original problem.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that makes complete sense.
Yeah, yeah. Like there's this great book written by Ernie Larson years ago called Second Stage Recovery, and first stage recovery is getting sober. You know, stopping either the substance, the alcohol, the behavior, whatever the way the addict acts out their addiction is sobriety. But there's that's abstinence. That's, you know, second stage sobriety is basically dealing with the underlying issues that cause you to use in the first place.
Right.
Which is typically around relationships.
Which you can't do while using.
Correct. Yeah, not very well. And so it's relationships with others and relationships with yourself. So I do believe all forms of addiction are a connection disorder. Not always a connection with other people, even though that's a huge part of it. It's a connection with a higher power, nicknamed God or whatever. Even if someone's an atheist, there's some sort of connection that you have with something beyond yourself. And then your own connection with who you are as a human. And if you don't, you know, addiction thrives in shame. You know, guilt is I feel bad. Shame is I am bad. Right. And if you fundamentally feel you are bad, you're not going to take care of something that you feel bad about. And so if I feel like I'm worthless, or my self-talk is I'm an idiot, or I'm a failure, which is real easy to do when you're using, because you're doing something you don't want to do and you can't stop. Because what is the definition of addiction? There's many. My friend Chris Doyle, who's an interventionist, I mean, 2 words: can't stop. Can't stop doing something. You tell yourself you will not go even as you drive there, which is a song lyric from a crazy song called Bad Houses from a hardcore industrial band back in the 80s called Big Black. But it's like, I find myself frequently, bad houses, places that no respectable person would ever be, and there you are. And so when you're in that place in your life, be it a job, and I'm using this metaphorically,
Sure, yeah, I understand.
You're with someone. Why are you with this person? You have this appetite for destruction. The Guns N' Roses first album from years ago. That was whenever the hell that was. Shows you how old I am. But
it was in the 80s too.
Yeah. Appetite. It's an appetite for destruction. And so when you are wanting to destroy the vessel that is carrying you around and is your life, and you can't stop doing that, there's definitely shame there. There's definitely disconnection there. And no matter how intellectually capable you become, this is not an intellectual issue. So some of the most difficult people that I've ever worked with are the really smart ones, because they think they can think their way out of a condition that is really, the issues are in the tissues. It's not in
They're
your...
usually the best actors too.
Oh, totally. Oh, and that's why you see so many actors and musicians that actually have addictions too, because for one, there's a certain sensitivity to artists, because everything humans do is expression. Us doing a podcast right now is expressing ourselves. Me writing a book, playing music, dancing, moving, working out, it's all expression. Addiction is a form, a way to express yourself. So what are you trying to express? So, it is really getting to a place where you can appreciate and be connected to something other than the ego, because the ego is a motherfucker if it's not used in the right way. And I'm not one of these people that ever say, no ego, dissolve your ego. It's like, you couldn't have a job, you couldn't defend.
Healthy ego.
It's like a horse. You have to figure out how to ride it. If it's wild and out of control, it's going to be reckless. But if you've developed yourself as a human, and you've put a lot of time into learning a skill, developing a skill, you really walk through the world, creating, producing more than you consume. You're not parasitical in any way. You have ethics and integrity. I mean, there's nothing wrong with feeling really good about yourself and honoring, that. It's hard to do though when you're in active addiction.
Well, it's the difference between confidence and arrogance, right?
Yes. Yeah.